Welcome back to the channel. All right, today I want to talk about using the PreSonus ATOM Drum Pad Controller with Beatmaker 3 on the iPad. Before we go any further, if you like content like this that deals with iOS production or production in general, making beats, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Also turn on your bell notifications so that you're alerted to new videos as I upload them. So let's get into this video. The way we're going to connect the ATOM to the iPad is using a Lightning to USB adapter here. So I have a USB cable coming from the adapter that's already plugged into the iPad, and then the other end comes here. So we're going to plug that in on the back of the ATOM. All right, so the ATOM comes on, and just so you know, the ATOM has a bunch of setup options here. So if we press Shift and set up here, we can configure the ATOM to send on different MIDI channels here on the pads or on the knobs, or even on the buttons themselves. There's even an option to turn off note on messages. So we can turn these guys off and only use them for pressure, that is aftertouch, or even MIDI CC messages. So we can use this as additional MIDI mappable buttons. And then this button up here will reset any option that you have configured in this menu. Then there's another menu. It's kind of a quick menu when you press and hold here. This allows you to set the internal tempo of the ATOM for when you're using the note repeat function. You can also set different levels of velocity as well as pressure sensitivity. Then you can also tell it what types of pressure messages you want to send, whether they're aftertouch, polyphonic aftertouch, or MIDI CC messages. And then there is a Mardi Gras mode there, and then some other options here. So moving on, the way we configure it inside of Beatmaker 3, see, it doesn't really do anything yet. If we look inside the audio MIDI window, you'll see that the ATOM shows up here as a MIDI and a MIDI out device. We only need it as a MIDI in device. And so now, let's see, I have some banks here. So I have Chompler. All right, so by default with the Omni mode on, you get this behavior where any pad that you select, you're already in a pitch mapped type of mode. So I want to be able to play all of my sounds using the different pads. So what I do is I actually map the pads. So we'll go to MIDI focus actions, and then we're going to start with trigger pad 1. All right, and we can actually use the auto learn function. So I'll start with trigger pad 1 and hit each pad in succession. All right, and then we'll stop learning. And we can keep on doing that for all of the banks actually to get the full range of MIDI notes here. But for now, we'll just do the first bank. All right, and so now I can play each individual sound. And then if I actually go into the keys mode, then I can get my pitch mapped options for that particular sound. And I'll show you how we can actually map that to one of the buttons on the ATOM here. So let's go back to setup and MIDI focus actions. The next thing I would probably want to do is map my transport function. So the ATOM has some transport buttons here: stop, play, record, click, which we can map in Beatmaker 3. So let's map stop. So we hit stop in Beatmaker 3, and then stop on the ATOM. That sends the MIDI message and it binds it. For record, same thing, hit the record button. I think there's play, hit play, And then for metronome, we'll choose click here. All right. And for loop, we can choose shift and the play button because that gives a different MIDI message. So if we want to enable the loop, we can press shift, and it's labeled here on the button loop as the secondary function. Okay. Then for tempo, maybe we want to use the zoom button because there's no zoom function that's mappable in Beatmaker 3. So we'll just use the zoom button for our tap tempo. Okay, so now we have the transport map there. Another thing I want to map is backward. So we'll choose right for backward, and forward we'll choose left for forward. So that's pretty much all the transport options that I need. Next thing I want to map is going to be our banking. So you can map and go directly to a bank, but since I don't have as many buttons on here, what I want to do is choose previous and next bank. So for previous bank, I'll choose up, and next bank, I'll choose down. So if we go back here, I can choose press up to go to the previous bank and down to go to the next bank. So that way I can navigate my banks and get to the different sounds in my session. So that's pretty cool. So the next thing we want to do, let's map our mode buttons. So we can choose our toggle pad keys, and we'll choose setup. And I chose that because of the way it's already laid out. So toggle pad keys is the first one at the top, then select, scene, mute, and solo. So we'll assign those in that order here. So toggle keys is the setup button here. And then for mode select, we'll choose set loop, mode scene, mute, and then solo. All right. And so if we go back to the pad mode, you'll see we can toggle the keys mode. If we choose a bank with some drum sounds, we get in pad keys. You see now we're in a pitch mapped mode now. And then turn that off and we're back to playing individual drum sounds in the kit. So you notice I'm double tapping to have to enable that. And that's because of the nature of the buttons. By default, they are latching buttons. So you press it once, it sends a message. And then you press it again, it sends like the opposite message. And there's no way to change that on Atom. That's just the nature of it. Some software allows you to adapt to that, but Beatmaker 3 does not. And then some hardware allows you to change that, but the Atom does not. So that's just kind of what it is. I've kind of gotten used to it. So, you know, it is what it is. All right, next thing, let's map our macro buttons. So Beatmaker allows you to map your macro knobs. So for macro control 1 here, we're going to turn knob 1, and that's going to bind it. Macro 2, knob 2, so on and so forth. And then you get another set of knobs if you press the shift button. These knobs will send a different message. So we can do macro control 5, hold down shift, and turn knob 1 because it sends a different message. Same with 6, hold shift and turn. 7, hold shift, turn. All right. So now we have 8 different macro controls. So it looks like I have some macro controls already here. So let's open our macro control panel, and we have control from the knobs. So that's really cool that you can have that hands-on control from the Atom inside of Beatmaker 3. I find that really helpful when you're sound designing and you're trying to shape a sound. It's just so much easier to grab a knob instead of, you know, touching the screen and whatnot. And you can apply that, you know, in different areas of Beatmaker 3. Of course, any plugin, any instrument that allows you to MIDI bind controls, you can do that in those plugins. So that's pretty much all I wanted to show you. Try it out, explore it. I find it very useful in my productions and also in the live looping that I do using Beatmaker 3 to have physical buttons mapped to these parameters in Beatmaker 3. So if you like content like this, again, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel, and then turn on those notifications so that you can be alerted to new videos as I upload them. So see you in the next video.